God is the source of all grace, all light, and all hope. Jesus talked about this and preached it over and over again. And Malachi was kind of getting to that as he's excoriating some of the religious leaders. They had gotten selfish, tried to make it all about themselves. And he said, get back to the basics. Get back to that knowledge and faith that God had with Moses and Aaron and so many of the prophets. Jesus, the same thing, telling us, don't put other things before God. How many times have you heard me say, it's God first, spouse second, family third, work fourth, etc., and it goes down from there. There's a paradigm that we have to follow if we're going to have that inner grace, that inner tranquility that God wants us to have. So we hear that in the first reading and in the gospel as well. And it's a wonderful thing about the Thessalonians. They were known for their graciousness. They were evangelized, and they just exploded into living like the disciples of Christ. And they were an example of what should be happening. And that should be happening in our country too, in our city, in our parish, that we become that witness to the love of God and the beauty of God. And so they were an example. You had the apostles, they were an example. Then the Thessalonians were an example. We are supposed to be an example of those who follow the law of God. And it's easy to get off kilter. Doesn't take a lot. We can get all about ourselves, and we said, why am I so unhappy? Why am I so anxious all the time? Why am I so worried all the time? And on we do that because we're not listening to God. We have false masters. Every one of us has a master here. Every one of us. Maybe money, prestige, education, reputation, all kinds of things. These are false goals. We're not going to be happy that way. Because our hope, our love is in God. And as St. Augustine said, Lord, you've made us for yourselves, and we will not rest until we rest in you. So here on earth, it is a battle. But in you, Lord, is my peace. Not in any other thing. Not in what college you get into. That's not going to make you happy. And if you don't get into your dream college, well, there's going to be thousands of others who don't go there either. But they do just fine, and maybe even better. So we have to kind of realign what's going to really make us happy, and that is loving God. Is putting Him first in everything, in your checkbook, in your family, in your job. You have to put God first. If you say, well, I've got to make X amount of money, then that becomes your God. And that's a terrible God. It's a terrible God. If you make it with your reputation, that's a terrible God. Because there's no one in this building right now who's perfect. Not one of you. Not me. It's not going to happen. And so when we try to make ourselves the center, that's when we lose. And that's when we fail. But when we put God first, we begin to put away the false foundations that we sometimes get into. And the more we love God, the more we can put God first in everything, the greater love you will have for your spouse, for your children, for your parents. You'll have a much greater love and hope when you put God first, because that's what he tells us. And God knows what is going to make us helpful and hope-filled. So perhaps today and this week, take some time to ponder this. Am I really putting God first in everything? Do I put God before my wife, my spouse, my husband, my children, my parents, my education, my job? Put God first in every one of those things. And then we will find happiness. Because we all know that just because I got a nice new house or a nice new car or something, or a promotion, that really doesn't last. It feels good, nothing wrong with those things, but they don't fulfill us. It's not enough. And we've all experienced that. We've all experienced that. We have to get a new experience. And that's put God first in everything. And so maybe you don't get the raise you wanted. Maybe you don't get a new car so often. You know, my car is 5 years old now, and it still goes 55 to 60 miles an hour, just like a brand new one. And the roads are not any shorter. It's there, and it works. And that's what we need. We don't need all new things. They don't make us happy. Nice, but not happy. So this week, take some time. Take some time to go into the Adoration Chapel. And spend 10 or 15 minutes. Say, God, I really don't put you first here. Help me with your grace to put you first in those things. First in your checkbook. Maybe I'm a little stingy, and I think it's all mine when it's really all yours. And you find, little by little, the tranquility in your heart will grow. You will not be so anxious. You will not be so worried. That's what God wants for us. We heard it in the first and second readings today, and the example of the Thessalonians. Let us take that lesson this week and say, God, I am going to focus on you being first in everything. Everything, without exception. And God will respond with a great love and hope. But that's the only way it's going to happen for us.